Welcome back and welcome to the One More K podcast, episode number 51. Today is a special day because it's just me on my side as a host. Ned has some private commitments, so hi Ned out there. But in the same time, I've got two guests today, which is the first time in the One More K podcast history. All the way from Bavaria, we got Andy Farnworth with us. Good morning, Andy.
Morning.
And we have Hans Koeleman as well. Good morning, Hans.
Good morning.
I didn't catch earlier where you're based. Where actually are you right now?
I'm in Amsterdam.
Amsterdam. So I'm in Germany, Bavaria, Amsterdam. Seems like a very heavily European show, but let's see how that turns out. Where we kick off, I thought, with Andy, what I saw on your bio is you are a runner. You have been a runner yourself. Why don't you take us through your professional running career quickly, just to kick off this sports podcast?
I think, we're both runners. Hans is a little bit heavier than I am. So, I was sponsored by Nike. At the end of my career, I ran for GB and 15 years, and I was studying environmental pollution control, and I happened to still look like a runner back then. So, I got a job as an EKIN, tech rep at Nike, sales rep at Nike, selling technical running shoes. I was the person that still looked like a runner. I was going into running stores and, going for runs with stores, selling the new running shoes to stores. That's how my career started in the sports industry, and I never left. So it's as with a lot of people in the sports industry, you go through 1,000 different roles within the company. So and it took me to many different places around the world. So it's been great.
What did you run? Which distances did you run?
I ran track, 15, 5K mostly.
Oh, nice.
Later in my career, slowed down to do some marathons and ultra marathons. So I still run a little bit. I don't run as much as I should, but I try.
Nice. What's been your mile or your 1500 time?
1500. What did I run? 3:39.
Holy moly!
So
okay. Yeah.
The best. GB was always very competitive. I was in a bit of a golden era too. So I think it's you get pushed along. I ran for a very big club in the UK. We had a big group of people. So it was very much, my running career was based around a big group of very good people that I trained with, and you don't realize how good you are when you're beating around a track on a Tuesday night in a 10 times 1,000 meters, and there's Olympians and British champions in the same group, and you just think, I'm doing okay, but I'm not doing great. But you realize pretty soon that you're well up there in most races. So I was very lucky to always be surrounded by other good athletes.
Nice. That helps quite a bit. How about you, Hans?
Yeah.
What's been your running background? I heard great stories about you too.
Well, I was a competitive runner, just like Andy. I did make the two Olympic Games, 1984, 1988. I was a steeplechaser, basically. Ran 1,500 as well. Bit of road racing. I lived in the U.S. at the time.
Right.
I lived in South Carolina for 7-8 years, Los Angeles for 3 years, just advanced degrees. Came back here. I was a historian, actually, but got a job offer from Nike, just like Andy did, and ended up working for Nike. So a track runner at heart, but turned from running really fast to running really slow, and did quite a bunch of marathons, 20, 30 marathons, lots of ultras as well, bit of trail running. So rather than being at the front of the pack, I'm more at the back of the pack right now. So I'm still in the same sport, just on the other side of it. Still in love with it. So that's kind of my background as a runner. I still run occasionally 3-4 times a week, but just short, slow stuff.
Wow. So I think you're the first Olympian on the One More K podcast. So that is something special. I feel like we should have an episode just about that in itself. It would be great to hear in the 80s there were fascinating times. I mean, I was just getting born there, so I don't remember it properly. But I'm sure that there's a lot to cover. Well, however, we are a business podcast, so we're gonna redirect ourselves back to the shoe part, because what I hear also in your bios is Nike as a big component, and you are involved and the co-founders of the Zen Running Club, and also on Hunt's side, I really like that you are I want to get it right here, the founder editor-in-chief of the Mystical Miles magazine. So
Correct.
Both of your companies, Zen Running Club and Mystical Miles magazine, have great names. So before we go into what you guys do, I thought, why don't we just cover the naming of those two entities and initiatives? Hans, what is Mystical Miles Magazine? I love that name.
Well, I do too. I actually borrowed it from a friend of mine, a great ultra runner in Cape Town, who wrote a book called Mystical Miles. It's a book about running, but it's more like a philosophical track, really, about the why and the how of running and what running does to you and the beauty of running and everything else. It's kind of an old school kind of book that could have been published in the late 60s, early 70s when people discovered running. Mystical Miles magazine is a magazine full of stories. So it's part literary, journalism, history. We've got a couple of really good running historians from the UK. Roger Robinson, not sure if you know him, but wrote quite a number of books on the history of running. So he's a frequent contributor. So the stories, basically. So we leave the tips and tricks and the 10 tips to run a faster 10K to the Runner's World magazines and publications like that. We just tell stories because we believe a story is also a powerful engine to propel a runner forward. In fact, my coach back then taught me that there are two power sources. There's the science and then story. And he turned me into a two-time Olympian. So who am I to argue with that? So that's Mystical Miles. Yeah. So it's story. Part mythical, part inspirational, part pure realism. It's everything.
And it's mostly in Dutch, is that correct? Or
Yes.
yeah.
It's in Dutch. The UK has a brilliant magazine called Like the Wind, which is fairly similar to ours, except it's not really the storytelling thing. But we do have plans for a US publication. So we're one of the things we're looking at right now is expanding into the US
Nice.
with the help of some friends. So because a magazine like ours does not exist over there.
Exactly. I've been looking into the US market a bit more, and it's fairly technical. I guess we know certain publications, but Americans also love stories. So any good story is very appreciated in America.
Absolutely. I mean, our magazine is really more like an Anglo-Saxon kind of publication than a Dutch one.
Yeah.
To be honest, but we want to try that first, get all the things in order, and then move abroad. Yeah. So
on that note, quickly, just because I love storytelling, and the reason why we do the podcast is also to tell the business stories, of course. What's been a great story you've been covering recently, just to dig into it a bit?
Well, we're not time bound. We publish 3-4 times a year, but it's not like we keep up with recent developments and stuff. We have great history stories on brands, on the origin of cross country running, for instance, but great. Just really good fiction, almost fantasy, almost surrealistic kind of stories about the running mindset, about what goes on in a runner's mind when that person is actually out there, So it's nothing really recent, although we do have Roger Robinson, actually, who's Catherine Switzer's husband, wrote a fantastic story about that 10K in Paris at the Olympics that he ran, which is just an ordinary 10K. You imagine just a 10K, like big deal, but the way he described it, it turned into an absolute world event in all its uniqueness. Not quite Olympic, but almost. And anyway, so beautifully, described story about that people's 10K that happens at the Olympics last August. But just a host of different kind of, pretty eclectic, to be honest. It's a lot of different kind of things that come together.
Nice.
In the magazine.
I saw some Prefontaine stories as well. I will dig into those later.
Prefontaine, certainly, yeah. And if you have any contacts with Southeast Asia, absolutely let us know. Because we're authors and stories, and people that can write and run at the same time. That would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, okay. I have a few things in mind. I will talk to you about this later. Because, again, Ned, our co-host, I wish he would be here right now. He's a big storyteller. He's also more your age group, and he is a backyard storyteller. He's really a lot into backyard stuff, and backyard produces a lot of crazy stories too, given the format. And of course, the Dutch and the Belgians and the Europeans in general are pretty good at backyard as well. So, yeah. Andy, Zen Running Club. Are you a Zen runner yourself? What is the story of Zen Running Club? What's the naming behind it?
When we were putting the idea and the brand together, building the components, it's a pretty serious message in a way. We were looking at trying to deal with the impact that the running industry has on the world and a lot of the components that go into it. But we were coming at it from a knowledge of runners now are very community based. These run clubs are blowing up. It's become a very social, non-competitive world for a new runner. So we wanted to bring a serious message, but in a really inclusive way, and trying to just create a brand with a slightly different, quirky name was important. And we just felt if we can be a club, then we can go on a journey with the people that engage with our products, buy our products, and we can create a little clubhouse with back end and tell stories ourselves, and not just deliver product, but deliver something that's interesting at the same time. So yeah, very much around the whole storytelling perspective of how a brand is growing from being completely new in the marketplace and going through the issues that startups go through, going through the issues of competing against very big brands out there that are very aggressive, and dealing with retailers who are also navigating the minefield of big brands. So yeah, it's very much a community based, a lot of it coming out post pandemic. So the world of running changed massively after the pandemic because a lot of people took up running. It's about the only thing you could do during then, and they've carried on, but they haven't gone down that competitive route. They're not into racing. They're not into personal best. They're not into the fastest 10K times. They're just interested in meeting people in a park on a Wednesday evening and having a coffee or a beer after. So yeah, that was kind of where we were pitching the idea when we started. So
nice. As a Zen person and Buddhist philosophy practicing meditator myself, I really appreciate the name. So is there any kind of background from the Buddhism angle there, or was it just because of being
No,
Zen?
no. But I think from my side, on a personal level, I guess when I was running at a very high level, it is very the meditation. You have to put yourself in a place outside your body and really concentrate because it hurts like hell when you're going quick, and you have to mentally play games with yourself, and the best way to do it is to take yourself almost in an outer body experience and just let the minutes pass by, and then every now and then you realize how much it's hurting, and then you try and put yourself back in that Zen zone. So yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of personal challenges that go on when you're running. You go through your own personal battles, and I think that whole meditation and outer body experience is really important within running and also in general life too. So yeah, I think it's people just need to relax a little bit and find a way to de-stress, and a lot more people are starting to use running as a mechanic to do that. So yeah.
For sure. So just to clarify the roles in Zen Running, so you are the co-founder, Andy, and Hans. How do you fit in this picture?
That's a good question. I was brought in by another Zen person, David Sanderson, and we're all former Nike guys. So it doesn't take long if you live in the same city. It doesn't take long for you to hook up, to meet up, and to be called in for a conversation. So I heard of Zen, and then this David called, said, "Look, would you like to come over?" My role really is almost on an advisory level. I'm a brand person myself. That was my role at Nike. I was a brand, what we call brand manager. It was called, I believe, but also heavily involved with the development of product. But my forte at Nike was brand. So brand marketing, brand identity, culture, really. And I see myself almost as the person that's just make sure that the brand develops in the right direction, and that we do keep up sort of the bit of a reference that I think the brand needs to have and the voice it needs to have. But we're still sort of, let's say, pumping on quite a few cylinders, but we need this. We're not a full company that sits in the office all together every day. We don't even have we have an office, but so it's people sitting here, people sitting there, and we're kind of pulling it together somehow to make it run, which I think is rather remarkable. In due course, my role will probably be more brand focused.
Nice.
I would imagine.
And this is now a question for you, Hans, again. Like, why, out of all the many shoe companies out there that exist, why did you pick supporting the Zen Running Club, guys? This is not really, because we're talking this time, again, I referenced it before, but 2 weeks ago we talked about the running event in Austin, where I spent a few days browsing through the 30, 40 different shoe brands that are coming up right now. I feel like we all know Hoka, we all know On. I mean, the new guys are getting big now. The new kids are grown up, and there's a new range of brands coming out. A lot about foam, a lot about cushioning. Why did you choose to work with Zen Running Club amongst the other 30, 40, hundreds of brands out there?
But it's a really good question. And I think there's a pretty simple answer. Without sounding too, let's say, Nike, There is no bigger and greater brand on the planet, as far as I'm concerned, than Nike. Forget all the issues, forget all the troubles it had, forget the recent number of years where the brand were basically just screwed up by the previous CEO. Forget all that. On the ground, when you're in the offices, and I've been in plenty of offices of other brands, talking to people, visiting, chatting, even business meetings that I was pulled in after I left Nike. The attitude at Nike, I think, is unique. The atmosphere, the culture at Nike is unique, and it's not so much the shoes they make. That's just a result. It's a gathering of crazy, rebellious people that truly believe that new things and better things can be made. It just so happens to be sports shoes. It could have been anything else. So it's the attitude that really attracted me to Nike way, way back. I mean, I have a relationship that goes back to 1978. So when I got my first pair of shoes and I visited the office here, when I went to the US, I lived on the East Coast, but I visited the West Coast quite often at the time that Nike was just 3 small little buildings. That was the company then. I have the attitude that I have fits nicely with Nike. So once you leave, and you want to get back in, it has to be something different, unique, and with almost the same rebellious attitude. Now, there's a tremendous amount of new brands, and I have great respect for all of them. I mean, I was at the On headquarters a couple of years ago. I was absolutely blown away by everything. But I wouldn't say most, all of the other shoe brands are developing, let's say, horizontally. They're working on new technology, new this, new that, new all of that. And none except Zen is developing vertically into an area where no one is. We don't really care much about technology. What we do is the materials. It's a 100% bio-based shoe that is compostable. That's the direction that Zen is moving into. So that is a totally new and undeveloped area, which I found tremendously exciting. If I were to work in another company, it'd be almost business as usual, I would say, with the exception maybe of an On, I would think, because I do like their attitude and I like the owner and the founder. But Zen is moving into a totally new area, and that I found really exciting. It's the attitude that the company has that really attracted me to it. It's the risk taking, and the founder of Nike once said, Nike made shoes way, way back because people were making bad shoes. I think Zen is here because people are making dirty shoes that pollute, which I at the time was not even aware of, to be honest. Right, the tremendous amount of shoes that were out there, all petroleum-based and all of that. But these guys at Zen made me aware that look, there is an alternative. And that is what attracted me to this company.
So what I'm hearing is it's about the attitude, which you've been mentioning quite a few times now, and the attitude is different with Zen, which manifests itself in choosing different materials in order to look at it vertically in a very new way. So, Andy, the materials seem to be a very big part of Zen. Take us through why is Zen different in terms of materials and its approach to making a shoe?
We built a shoe not out of pure performance initially. We built it for an end-of-life scenario. So we were looking at it from where does the material come from? How does it perform when it's made into a product? And then what happens to that product once you finish using it? Because we've all worked in big companies. I've worked in Asia for years now in factories pressing millions of pairs of shoes and watching the way that the model goes, just pumping shoes out of factories, looking for new tech. And technology is exciting. Everyone's chasing a faster time. Everyone wants a new super shoe with a carbon plate. Does everyone need a shoe with a carbon plate? I really don't think so. And from our side, it was, we were selling into some of these big brands, trying to sell some of these sustainable materials. And it was a really difficult sell because they're not on parity from a look and feel, but there is a attitude to how you deal with it within the business. So we were struggling to sell the eco stuff, and we had a suite of materials, and we knew we could make a fantastic running shoe. It was kind of born out of working with the midsole factory, and I said we really need to make a shoe out of this material to prove to the brands that when they do produce a product out of this material, it performs. So we were working with the factory, and it became a product, and then it became a brand. So we kind of accidentally became a brand from from an internal marketplace trying to drive products into the industry. So we're just trying to prove to a consumer that you physically can wear a shoe made out of very unusual materials and transition that into mainstream industry. So yeah, from our end, it's all about the material. We're really on a goal and a drive to make a compostable product, a high performance compostable product. These shoes are lasting 500, 1,000 years in landfill. There's billions of pairs a year being pumped out into the marketplace. Nothing's really being addressed about how you deal with it, and a lot of regulations are coming down the line. So, I think when Hans first walked in, back to why, first comment was, well, everyone's going to be doing this in 10 years' time. Like, this is where the market's going. You are at the beginning of that journey, and that's kind of, it feels like Nike in 1978. You're doing something, everyone's making running shoes, but you're going to do it a little bit different and just try and shake up the market. And it's, when you speak to consumers and you speak to the retailers, there's still a pushback on sustainability. They're not openly, actively looking for it, because probably our most frequently asked question is, does your footwear dissolve when it rains? So there's a huge lesson and a huge amount of information to be given to the consumer to show that actually these shoes work one-to-one with a standard shoe. They're just made of very different materials. So we grow a plant, we process it, we make it into materials that we can use within a piece of footwear, create the footwear, and then the end of life of that footwear is very different than a traditional shoe. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting, really fast-moving business. I think 3 years in, we were 20% bio-based in the midsole 3 years ago. We're pumping shoes out now that are 70% bio-based, and we're developing shoes that are much, much higher bio-based than that now. So even in the last 3 years, it's moved very, very fast, and it's really interesting, but it's still fairly unique in the market.
It happens to be that I'm a material scientist by training, long time ago, but I have studied various types of materials. And with one of my companies is a nutrition field, and we looked into compostable packaging a lot. We were the only brand using compostable packaging for energy bars, so I also have that kind of perspective. We've changed it in the meantime, but I'm very curious about materials. So let's talk about materials here, because that's my background. So what is it made of that you reach 70% bio-based content? That is impressive.
So we're mixing the polymer with rapeseed oil. So it's a derivative of the pharmaceutical industry. So we are managing to blend rapeseed oil with traditional EVA, and then adding enzymes to break down the blockchain in compostable nature. But the performance of the foam is the key. So it has to be a responsive cushion foam for it to be a credible running shoe. So yeah, the new polymer is with rapeseed oil. So it's a high performance polymer. The more bio content you put in, often the firmer the foam gets. So you're trading off performance. But with the new technology, they've managed to blend a very high level of organic material without any degradation on the performance. So yeah, the new shoes are winning awards in Runner's World. We're on the same page as Hoka, Nike, Adi, Puma. So it's multi-billion-dollar brands, and it's bio-based, not petroleum-based. So we're proving slowly that the bio-based materials are the future, and hopefully everyone else will start to transition as well at some point. So yeah.
When you say compostable, I do know there are two certifications out there quite big. It's home compostable certification and industrial compostable certification. Do you have any of those two? Because they each define a very specific type of compostability process.
Yeah. So we were working on biodegradability, and then we're working with Sartre, who are the main footwear testing company, and they're doing compostable testing for us. So yeah, it's industrial composting, but we can hopefully get to the home composting, because I've since learned if you get a compostable certificate, it doesn't matter which landfill it goes into, because there's many types of landfills, obviously, because there's so much being made and thrown away. Yeah, I think we're doing individual component compostable testing right now on the future products that we're working on, and then we'll start to assemble that into a product and create a holistic shoe that is made of all those components. So okay. Yeah. Right. And we're testing chemical leaching, post-compostability, etc. So yeah, I think obviously it's far from perfect, but we're getting very, very close to being as good as it needs to be.
Which is important because the industrial compostability is, I believe, 70 degrees Celsius environment to break down the material. So it's this facilities that heat up the material, whether it's a shoe or in my case was a packaging, which also means that your shoe, if it's worn in a hot environment, hot and humid, let's say Singapore, it wouldn't break down at 30 degrees, right? So that's where it has a longer lifetime than if it's home compost. Home compostable, I believe, is around 30 degrees Celsius environment. Then it starts breaking down, but industrial is 70 degrees. So that's also, I think, an important part of this conversation.
There's a very specific environment for any reaction within the product to happen. So obviously we need durability, because what we don't want to do is make a shoe that lasts 100 kilometers and then you have to buy a new one. That doesn't help anybody. Yeah, it's 90% in 180 days. That's when you get to a compostable certification. So yeah, that's a rapid breakdown once it's in that environment. And right now, a traditional shoe won't break down more 500, 600, 700 years. It's made of very durable materials, and it's made not to break down. So yeah, and it's just breaking down into microplastics. It's never really disappearing. So yeah, and we were fighting the industry. The running industry is very talks about sustainability, but they're taking a plastic bottle, taking the crushed plastic bottle, cleaning them, making a plastic bottle into a material for an upper, and making a plastic bottle upper on a shoe. And that's not really solving a problem. It's just moving the problem to another arena. So yeah, we were just looking at alternative ways to try to create sustainability, and it became apparent that we can do it in quite an organic way, which is great.
Have you seen any challenges, or did you see any compromise in performance based on choosing materials? Again, from my perspective, I've been using compostable packaging material, and my packaging machines were complaining because they were all tuned into plastic, and we had to re-engineer our packaging machines from scratch in order to package our energy bars. It was a 3-year, very difficult process. Oh my God. So end of the day, it worked out. But also in your case, I'm wondering, what did you have to re-engineer vertically, as Hans said, in order to make it work, to keep the performance the same?
We had to work hard. The upper was harder, so we had to create a new way to knit the fiber. It's eucalyptus fiber. So we were creating new ways to be able to knit the fiber and keep its structure over time, because obviously the upper takes a lot of wear and tear. You undo and redo the laces often, and what you can't have is stretch over time, so the shoe doesn't fit. Yeah, we worked hard engineering it that from that perspective. From a midsole perspective, we use it a traditional molding process. So either injection or compression molding, which is standard in the industry. It's the formulation that's very different. So yeah, I think from that side, it was more the science of blending the biomaterial with the EVA that was the difficult piece. The actual manufacturing of it then became pretty easy. It's pretty standard. We can use a standard footwear factory, so we didn't have to go source a whole new process. So yeah, we can still pick or choose which factory we use. So yeah, I think from that side was relatively okay. It was just the blending of the material, getting the density right. So the running industry is moving. The running industry, or the big brands, are moving to very high performance, very soft, very bouncy, very quick products. But that's not necessarily what your average runner on the high street needs. They're very unstable from a day-to-day perspective. They're great to run 2-hour 20 marathons in, but we are a traditional foam product. We're not super shoe foam product. We're just super comfortable on a long run, perfectly happy to run a half marathon in. And as a day-to-day trainer, you wouldn't tell the difference if it's bio or not bio right now. But we are not operating in that level of elite marathon runners. So yeah, which is
right.
Absolutely fine.
And Hans, who do you sell to, and what kind of stories do you create for that target audience to make that purchasing decision?
I think we just came back, or Andy and our sales guy just came back from a running conference in the UK. Specialty stores, but big buying groups. I think at the moment it's anybody that believes in the product, that believes in the performance angle of it, but also the future of it. So I don't think we're too precious. Specialty is absolutely key, because that's really, they drive innovation. They drive the future of running by and large. but not solely specialty. Again, any company, any retail company that believes that, yes, we need to take some different type of action, right? And here is an opportunity with a small new brand that might actually, set the tone for that new development, and I want to be part of that. So the story we tell really is as Andy said. I think one of the first things I said when I come in is, I do believe, although quite a few people have said that I was crazy, I said no, the running world is much too conservative. But I do say in 10 years, this will be more the norm than the exception. Brands will have to follow suit. This whole environmental movement, even though for us, it's still going way too slow, but it is moving, and it's moving slowly but surely, and it cannot be stopped. This is a trend or a movement that is set in that is basically unstoppable right now. So people, at some point in time, people will have to come and come clean, literally, and say, okay, I have to do my part as well. Look at the automobile industry. There's not a single manufacturer out there, even Ferrari and Lamborghini, who are making electric cars, or at least contemplating it, or at least realizing that we do have to have that, because in due course, right? So petroleum-based cars are basically phased out. I mean, in Amsterdam, you can't even enter the city anymore with a car that's older than like 20 years, right? So the footwear industry is kind of a paradox. It's on the one hand incredibly innovative, and on the other hand incredibly conservative, because it's safety first, and you don't want to move the thing. You don't want to change too many things at once. But people will follow the direction that we set in. And that really is the story we tell. Is that, look, we're still small, right? On the scale of things, we sell absolutely nothing. Right? We're not even there, realistically speaking, right? We have like a 0.00000 whatever market share globally. It's nothing. We're not there. But, we do have something in our hand that no one else has. And the story really is, you want to be part of that, then join us. And yeah, granted, the shoes are good. I mean, I've ran half marathons and even longer in the shoes, and they're good. Yeah, they're absolutely good. Can run. I would recommend it to anybody. Can they be improved? Absolutely. Are they far from perfect? We're working on all of that. And we're working on it surely with guys like professionals like Andy, whom we have great confidence in that we will get it all right. Performance and the sustainability angle. That really is the main story we tell. And we're not really sure if it's going to work, but someone has to start it and try it. And so that's sort of, who we talk to, who we sell to, how we talk to people. And it's almost reminiscent of the early environmental, action groups way back in the 60s, 70s. Well, people, oh, what are you doing? Right? What's that stuff all about? Well, this will be this will be the future. And it will be the future, no doubt. Absolutely, no doubt. No doubt.
I mean, I think everything comes in cycles, and from my perspective, I can see 5-6 years ago we were on a high cycle in terms of sustainability. The last few years, given inflation and things getting more expensive, people have less cash available. They are buying less into sustainability, and then probably we're going back again into it. I think everything comes in cycles. Do you feel that those cycles too, and how do you respond to those cycles?
Well, things are cyclical for sure, depending on. But this trend, this whole sustainable trend, and not just in shoes. Like I said, it's in cars. It's in most parts of our lives. It's not even a trend anymore. It's there. It might go a little quicker or a little slower. That might be a trend, but it's certainly moving forward. Moving forward. Unconditionally, it's moving forward. Unstoppably, it's moving forward. And again, the only trend could be, that there's economic downturns, there's whatever things might happen that might slow it down. But it's certainly not reversing that trend, I think. So we're moving ahead and looking into the future with great confidence. Which is the thing that I keep telling the teams is, we don't want to do things too quickly, but we do need to hurry up, because we don't want to have anybody waking up and say, okay, and put all the resources together and basically blow everybody away, right? So we want to make sure that we do it right, but we do it quickly.
Andy, is your technology protected? Like, how do you make sure on Hans Note to stay ahead or stay unique?
I work closely with the supplier. It's not protected. We came at this from a fairly open source perspective. We're not into owning this technology. We want this technology to hit the market, and I don't know if it's a detriment to our brand or not, but we very much internal people within the industry where we wanted to make the industry move. So there's no point trying to own and protect the technology. Ideally, we want everyone to start to use it, because from our side, volume is key. And if we can transition brands from no percent to 10% to 20%, then great. And there's a little movement, but it's one or two shoes within a brand's collection of thousands and thousands right now. So I think, yeah, right now there's another couple of small brands coming up too. So, and we were speaking to them last week, and more the merrier, because the accounts are now starting to look, oh, there's two really nice sustainable brands. I can start to put a little collection on a wall together. I can give you a space and I can talk about it. So I think from a running perspective, we need more people to come into this arena for us to succeed almost. It's very, very difficult pioneering on your own against enormous budgets. And yeah, it's very hard to get shelf space because the large brands are demanding huge purchase orders from very small stores, because they're just after volume and they're pumping product in, and it leaves very little space for something new. The newness needs a bit of volume around it for it to be a credible part of a collection. So yeah, we're speaking to individual stores, big buying groups. So we're starting to transition and we're starting to see some real movement, but it's slow. So yeah, I think we just actively need more people to engage with this type of product. And the issue is the brands are not talking about this kind of product because they don't want to talk about this kind of product right now because it's just not in their interest. So yeah.
Right now it's all about recycled ocean plastic. I think that's where the industry is right now. And as I said earlier, it's just part of it. It took them also 10 years to get there. But yeah, I mean, 2 weeks ago, we also talked about on the podcast, the financing side of starting a shoe brand. So the question to you is, how do you start a shoe brand financially speaking? Do you have investors? Because I'm sure that building up inventory, all the R&D can't be easy and it can't be cheap.
Building a shoe and building an initial brand is super easy for us. It's all we've ever done. It was, yeah, make a shoe, haha. But then the business side kicks in, and we took investment initially, which allowed us to get going and pressure test the market. We went into some major retailers across specialist running, lifestyles. We were just playing around with the distribution channels because we know that runners are buying in different places now. New runners don't go to running stores, they go to where they currently shop, which is probably fashion accounts. These are all agency people, media people, tech people. They don't go to a running shop. Traditional runners tend to go there. So we were playing around in a lot of marketplaces, and like every startup, we're fundraising again. It's a never-ending story of getting money in, marketing, new technology. Starting a brand's expensive. The tooling for a new shoe is expensive. It's not a cheap product to make, and unfortunately, everyone's got a different shoe size. So there's a lot of different molds to open up. We're not a one mold company, so. Yeah, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars to create a product, and it better be pretty sure it's going to work. Otherwise, it's a lot of investment, and we don't have the free cash to start playing with different molds and different shoes. So we've created one shoe, we transitioned to another one quite quickly. But the growth for us is different foot shapes, different styles of running. That's where the growth of the brand comes from, but that needs investment and it needs momentum. So yeah, it's not the easiest market to break into just because of the upfront cost involved. So yeah,
which is, I guess, good because you don't, again, not many have your knowledge in the first place. Given your the combined knowledge in your team is incredible. Given that they're fairly high barriers of entry, as you said, it's not that easy to start a shoe brand. So that protects you certainly a bit with a moat. I've seen you have 3 type of lines on your website. How they're different? How do you price them? Like how do you bring it to the consumer then?
It's all built on one platform, and we have different uppers. So they offer a different fit, and there's more relaxed fit. There's a more secure fit. And we're working on different toolings now to bring out different shoes. So yeah, we have a very narrow product range right now, and that will grow. So yeah, I think it's and as we grow, but it's a very generic shoe. We reach a huge amount of the running population with the product that we built. So we built quite a nice wide platform neutral running shoe that 70-80% of runners can run in. It's got a nice rocker profile on it. So we're in the mass market of foot-shaped communities, and then we can get more niche and more technical as we grow.
Right. And which countries and geographies do you focus on for sales? Which consumer groups in those countries do you speak to?
We launched in Europe with retailers in Europe. Brexit cut off the UK for quite some time. We've just launched in the UK. We needed a new warehouse. We have a US distribution. So we do very well on the West Coast. So California organically grows quite nicely. We work with a leading orthopedic surgeon in the US. He does a lot of recommendations for us. We sell an awful lot of shoes to athletes post-recovery right now. So we're proving that our comfort and fit day-to-day is fantastic. So, and we're working with a new distributor in Japan. So we're hoping to open that market up early next year. We have a large distributor in the Middle East, and we're actively talking to some big buying groups around Europe for the next phase. So yeah, we're from where we are now, we're expanding quickly, and it's coming down to financing right now. So yeah, the model's in place, and the sales are in place, and the problem is when you place a PO, the product's not cheap. So you place a large volume order, which is expensive, and you don't get the return on that money for almost 9 months because the lead time of the product is long, the shipping's long, payment windows are long. So yeah, there's it's a cyclical business, and unless you're a big brand and you can just fund it season on season, it's quite stop-start at the beginning. So yeah, it feels like you race and then you slow down for a couple of laps and then you race again. So it's quite juddery start, but that's purely because of the way the financing comes in and out of the business. So yeah, it has to be managed properly. Otherwise, next month when we place, we'll be bankrupt. So yeah.
Yep. It is an endurance run itself, I always say, especially in the hardware industry, like goods. Like software is a bit different. You can't just suddenly grow crazy, but in physical goods, it's a very long game you got to play. Hans, I mean, you've seen Nike grow, over the decades by now. What is your vision for Zen? Like, where do you see it going, whether it's in the brand story, but also whether it's in the business side of being acquired, growing in certain ways? Where do you see it going?
Well, I hope to see this grow tremendously. And as we all know, 20 years ago, who would have heard of Hoka? No one. Who would have heard of On? No one. And if you'd asked me back then, is it possible for a small brand to come in and really take over? I would have said no. But Hoka did, and On did. So, it's possible with the right kind of energy, the right kind of product that really addresses consumer needs. Now, Hoka did that because people in America would want, thick shoes that were very comfortable. Well, basically, the whole industry was going minimalistic, back to nature almost, which is kind of funny in a way. The world will go sustainable, and we're the brand that can lead people to that. So I see a great future for Zen. Maybe not at a level of a Hoka or On, because I think we're almost niche still. But I do hope that we're a trendsetter, that most of the other brands will look at Zen and take over some of the technology and the learnings from Zen and apply it to their line, which, as Andy said, we're not too precious about it, right? We're, as long as we can make this company work and make sure that all the other brands are making better running shoes, and that's fine for us. But I do want to see it, and again, we're still in the early days, to be honest, Markus, on how the brand is developed. So we're basically in a very operational mode as right now, almost like a day-to-day, like, what do we need to do to survive, more or less, and sort of really long-term planning regarding brand identity and everything. But we will be an irreverent brand. We will be a brand that will speak out. We will be a brand that stands up and says, look, guys, we need to do something different. We will be, not in a protest way, standing on the barricades with torches and flags and everything, more in a like a running kind of way, but we will be very persuasive in telling people there is an alternative. There needs to be an alternative. Look at, was it $15 billion worth of running shoes being produced every year, and they're all not moving anywhere for the next couple of 100 years. So that's a lot of running shoes that are out there that runners don't even think about. And honestly, I didn't even think about that. I just simply didn't. I knew it was big, but you never think about it. You're almost happy that, the upper is made of, 10% sort of recycled plastic, and you go like, oh, wow, that's fantastic. I'm so happy. I'm so proud. But really, you're not really doing anything. Right. So We will be a brand that will stand out and be irreverent and tell and that. And people want to listen to us, it's fine. Other big brands don't want to follow suit, that's up to them. But we're just going to move our way, and we're going to move ahead with what we're doing. We'd like to see, we're talking about 60, 70, 80%, right? Whether it's possible or not, that the whole shoe is 100% bio-based. I don't know if that's possible, but it is something we'll try to aim for eventually.
I mean, combining what you both said just into one statement or one question is, I mean, Hoka got acquired by Deckers, I believe 4 or 5 years after they founded. On went public. So how much do you need to be either tapping into public markets for debt financing or tapping into a Deckers universe to grow? Right now you're independent. Can you see any of those scenarios coming up for you in order to grow?
We're primed for a purchase of a brand because if we can grow. I was having a conversation with someone last week and he said, "What's your goal?" I said, "I don't know. If we could be 0.5% of the running market, it'd be amazing." And he scoffed at me, and I'm like, "That's $100 million business." I'm like, "That's beyond any imagination right now." And he was like, "Really?" I'm like, "This is an enormous industry, but it takes scale and it takes relationships and it takes goodwill, and a lot of that comes from the bigger brands who buy up a number of different brands, and you can be put into their system and they can scale you, and it becomes a much easier model." Yeah, for sure. If someone bought us tomorrow, we'd be a very big brand if a certain selection of people were purchasing it. But right now, it's not on the radar for us. We're still trying to do the best we can, and I almost don't want anyone else to start messing with it because we're trying to push as fast as we possibly can and not incrementally. So we right now we can make as many big leaps as we can at the beginning before it starts to slow down. So yeah, I think we need to get to where we want to be, which is the compostable, and then that's almost. We can't get any better than that. It can only improve the comfort and the cushioning. But the actual story of shoes then is you've met the perfect scenario. So I think that's where we're at right now as in our mindset and the way we're looking at it in our own little unique way. So
for sure. I mean, I think like owner-led product companies are amazing because you can laser focus on the product, and that's what really matters. You can focus on the story. That's the second thing that matters. Anything else is not important, because I think that's where you can differentiate yourself the best. As if you come too big, too fast, you also lose focus, and you have maybe too much cash to try out too many things. And then, like Nike and other brands have been laser focused with what they do, and then they grow along that. I think that's perfect. Yeah.
And the scale of it is so big. Like a Nike and Adi, their sample budget just for the sales samples is bigger than most brands. It's like these things are enormous. Like, yeah, of course, if you put a nice brand into a business that's got thousands of sales reps on the road and millions of contacts to every stores in the world, the scale is fine. But yeah, it's right now it's picking the right retailers for us. It's like like-minded retailers, like-minded collaborations. So we have a collaboration with the Mandarin Oriental Hotel. So we're doing a deal with them, and they're carbon neutral. So people were like, "Oh, it's a very high-end hotel." I'm like, "Yeah, but their philosophy is perfect. They're carbon neutral. They fit where we are. They came to us. They found us as a tiny little brand a year and a half ago before anyone knew us because of our story. So and now we're trying to grow that business. So do run clubs with them, do in-store testing with them, in hotel testing. So yeah, I think those stories are very important. We can manage that well and pick the right accounts. We can pick accounts that have a sustainable tab on their website, who have a sustainable warehouse, who have a solar power warehouse, all of those things. I think that's really important to us, just to work with partners that are like-minded as much as possible and not look at the bigger picture right now. We need to get a little foothold, and we need to start to establish ourselves. We need to grow our brand, and we need to speak to someone who wants to buy a pair of shoes in 2 years' time. We're not speaking to someone who wants to buy a pair of shoes now. So
right.
Yeah, I think it's just the way the model works. It's like getting into store is slow, and getting people to transition from one brand to another is slow, but we need to tell this story as much as we can to educate people that what we're doing is possible and also a credible alternative. So we're getting nice feedback from stores right now. If when you go into a store, you try on 4 or 5 pairs of shoes, and one of those is our shoes, great, and then we get down to two. Okay, which one do I want? And then the retailer's like, hey, by the way, this shoe's made of XYZ. And then you're like, okay, this is great, fantastic. So we have an amazing story for a final purchase decision. It's like, but the sustainability isn't the key. It's, does it feel nice? Does it fit well? Is it comfortable? Do I think I can go for a run 3 times a week in the gym in the shoe? Yes. Okay. And it's made of this. Wow. So that's our business model right now. And that will change as we grow and the story becomes more relevant and people know what we're made of. But right now, yeah, it's being lean, it's being fun, it's being inclusive, it's providing more information. Like, we don't just sell shoes; we want to tell people training plans or breathing techniques, or just be a friendly brand. So.
Yeah, I think it's setting a lifestyle, and I think that's what it comes down to. That's also where the name Zen, going full circle now, comes into. It's not about just another carbon plate. I mean, I'm super keen now to try on the shoe. I think I'm gonna, because it sounds so comfortable. I wanna get it. It's also, by the way, a great Christmas present for anyone out there that wants to.
Exactly.
So where can people find you? I guess on the website zenrunningclub.com. That's one way of getting to it. Maybe the last question from my side, very quick, is what's on your Christmas wish list for next year for Zen? If you have a wish for next year, one of you, both of you, go for it. Hans.
Great write-ups by runners on their social media posts. I think like top runners. People come to us, say, look, can I get a pair? Can I get a pair? People just start talking about it. That, I think, a lot of people talking about it.
Nice. Word of mouth. Community. I got it. Andy, what's on your wish list?
Yeah, I was saying exactly the same thing. I would like our biggest sales to be word of mouth sales, because that's where we're at. For every one shoe we're selling, we're gaining 2 or 3 more people, because the runner who wears our shoes is our best salesperson. They're out for a run, they're running with some friends, and someone says, "Hey, what are you wearing?" We're finding a lot of people, they're doing a really good sales job for us, because it's like, yeah, these are great. They're comfy. I love them. I'm enjoying them. And by the way, they're made of this, this, and this. It's like, okay, here's where I bought them, and it's super nice when you get that feedback. Oh, my friend bought a pair, or I bought this person a pair. Like, it's nicer than going to a store just as a mechanic. So yeah, I think the bigger we can get and the bigger we can grow this the community, the back end of our brand, the better. I think it's I think it's a really inclusive way to grow a business, and then at some point there'll be a tipping point where the big accounts are coming to us to ask. So I think that's at the end of next year, I'm hoping that will be the case. So yeah,
nice.
Right now we're doing a hard sell-in. At the end of next year, I'm hoping they're coming to us. So yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I'm a big fan, and I think with your good intentions, good outcomes will follow. I believe in that. It will be just a matter of time. So thanks for being on the One More Care podcast. I'm really grateful for spending time on Zen and also other running stories, of course. And I'm going to follow, of course, and hope to help you wherever I can. And otherwise, I'm wishing you, of course, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks very much, Markus. Much appreciated for the leg up. It's really nice to speak to people and tell the story.
Thank you.